And so we can move on to other corruption in the government, other little scandals going on, although this one's been far splashier and probably less substantial. As you know from all the mainstream reports over the weekend, Obama's trip to Colombia was compromised when Secret Service people were accused of not paying hookers. And then they brought in members of the military and others, and they've detained them and taken them back home, and they're getting ready to charge them with violating the Secret Service codes. That's if we were even told the truth. We really don't know. It's hard to believe that this would have broken out into a major news scandal rather than just being covered up from within. If indeed this is going on, we know high-level officials are engaged of all kinds of unspeakable things, but why is this happening now in the middle of the Summit of the Americas? Is it because there's the Cuba question on the table from a number of Latin American countries calling to open back up negotiations there in terms of the U.S. to do away with the travel bans there, to take off sanctions? Does it have to do with the fact that multiple Latin American countries are saying it's time to legalize and decriminalize drugs because the drug war has failed, putting incredible pressure on the U.S. to respond to the obvious failure of the drug war, all the scandals where they've been caught propping up drug cartels, shipping in themselves from Afghanistan and other military-guarded locales? Is it because Wall Street has been caught laundering so much drug money? Does it have to do with all the partnerships and unions and global agreements they're trying to do with these Latin American countries, which are routinely protested and very unpopular with the people? Or does it have to do with the questions raised by Gordon Duff in the Veterans Today article? Was the presidential detail penetrated by an assassin? Assassination Colombia, what if it ain't about whores? And he gets into how the story seems very unbelievable because of the factors we mentioned, because power tends to corrupt, but it also tends to cover up for its own scandals, not really wishing to reach the media. And so Gordon Duff raises the question, was the Secret Service, was the military, was the president's detail possibly infiltrated by someone from a foreign government or representing something else? You've got them trying to push for the Iran war, and the U.S. has at least initially said no to that. You've got other factors going on. Was that part of this story? Were they hiding something, and that something is vulnerability, in other words? What's really going on here? We don't know. Was it some kind of honey trap with the women involved here? Was it really an issue of just not paying a woman when they're traveling with all this cash and they're so spendthrifty and willing to just expunge on all kinds of needless affairs? You've got Secretary of State Hillary Clinton partying in Colombia, all these other officials on camera and in the media doing this stuff. We're going to keep an eye on this. It appears to be a distraction from the other major issues going on. We, of course, don't know. But you've got even more federal government corruption, the facade of federal justice in this Montana case where Butte, Montana City Judge Stephen Combich has been accused and convicted now of bribery in federal court. He was sentenced this week to paying only $5,000 in restitution, even less than he was charged with accepting in bribes, a number that was at least $13,000, which came about from routinely dismissing traffic tickets and other citations for bribe, and he's got, I don't know, 3 or 5 years of probation. And then in this article from Montana Festo, they compare it to the outrageous case, especially by comparison, where a medical marijuana caregiver named Chris Lindsay is also facing charges. Those charges are more than 690 years or 25 consecutive life sentences for administering medical marijuana in the case there. So why is that case so heavily punished, but government corruption, admitted bribery where he's convicted, they just get off with a fine and probation? What in the world is going on? Well, it's just a corrupt system. They go after whoever they can, and they let off as many inside officials as they can unless there's enough pressure to put the skids on them.